So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Didn't even have to give you 5 seconds. Excellent job. We're going to be starting here now in 8th grade Earth Science class. Of course, we're not going to be talking about Earth. We're actually going to be talking about space. And we've had maybe 1 or 2 units where we've looked at space so far. And we're going to start a new unit today about how we discover things about space. And so we are going to be looking at the electromagnetic spectrum. And you're going to be doing some research on that, hopefully to get you prepared to think about doing research for your science fair project, as well as just give you some using the computer. So what I'd like you to begin with is everybody needs to go into their Gmail account and look for the paper that I've shared with you, or the document that I've shared with you. This is an anticipatory set. I just want you to fill in by your name answers to those questions or anything that you know about light in general. What you're doing with this is we're going to do an inductive reasoning skill set in which we take something that we know about, like light that you see shining from the light bulbs, shining from the sun outside, and we're going to try and make it more encompassing to encompass something larger, the electromagnetic spectrum. So when we go from something small to something big, it's called inductive reasoning. Won't let you open it. Okay, so we're having some trouble opening it. Is there anybody who was able to get into it?
Go into your the doc instead of the email.
Got it. Thank you. So Google Documents and open it from there, and then you should be able to add. TJ?
I'm not sure I'm on the list.
Why don't you just add yourself to the bottom if you're not on yet? Thanks. If you don't get to all of them, that's fine. If you like some columns better than others, that's fine. If you want to start at the end and work backward, that's fine too. So that pretty much tells us that there's a lot more information that's being sent through these waves that can travel through space that don't need medium to travel through. There's a lot more information that's being sent than what we can actually see with our eyes. If you do have some time, this perspective on the sky shows you different pictures with all different kinds of wavelengths. So we start off at one end with radio waves. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of radio waves. And we can get a picture, like we saw down there, with radio waves. We can also get a picture when we look at the microwaves, when we look at the infrared waves, when we look at the visible light, like what we can see, what we look at when we see the ultraviolet, X-ray, or gamma rays. So there are pretty much 7 sections of this continuum that scientists split into different numbers. Now there's no exact place where there's one place where it's X-ray and now it's gamma ray. It's kind of a continuum. But these are the main general themes that we look at when we're looking at the electromagnetic spectrum. So what can we see with these things?
To commemorate this International Year of Astronomy, leading NASA's
A better place to get your information and why. What you're going to be doing is not looking at the entire spectrum, but you're going to be assigned just one individual part of the spectrum, and you're going to be working with groups to present some information on that one little spectrum. And then once you know a lot about that one little piece of the spectrum, then you're going to take that back to the class, and you're going to teach the class a little bit about your little piece of spectrum. As you're working, you're going to be graded on how you're working in your groups. And so as I look, I want to be seeing that you're using your time well. That's the first category, time management. The second thing is your attitude. That should be positive. You should be helping the person in your group, making sure that you're collaborating together in a positive way rather than in a negative way. That you're focused on the task. So I really shouldn't be hearing what you're going to be doing this weekend, and I shouldn't be hearing about the ball game last night. You should be talking about science things that are related specifically to the electromagnetic spectrum. If you think about how you work in a group, that's pretty much what I'm looking at today, because you won't necessarily have time for slide 4 or for these different slides. But the other thing the reason I put slide 4 first is because that's where I want you to gather all of your data about where you're getting your research. So when you do your science research for science fair, you need to make sure you're keeping track of every place that you look. So slide 4, I put that right there at the top because whenever you go into a site, I want you to record what that site is from. I'm not going to ask you to identify it in a specific way like you're going to need to do for science fair, but I just want you to know where you got it from. Now you may say, Miss Sander, you know where it's at, you've got them all figured out for us, there's only 5 we can go to anyway. That's correct, there are only 5 you can go to, but I still want you to be aware that whenever you're getting information from someplace, you need to know where it is that you're getting that information from. And so slide 4 is where you're going to be putting that information. Slide 1 is going to just tell us a little bit about the everyday uses of that wavelength. So turning on your light, a microwave. Can somebody raise their hand and let me know what they think a microwave would probably be for? Aaron? Cooking food. So that would be an everyday use, and then you'd have a picture as well. Slide 2, you're going to look at what are the specific uses out in space. And then slide 3, I want you to try and say, what is the new perspective that I've gained after learning this information? Are there any questions about how to get to this rubric? I'll have you just sort of read through that on your own. All right, if there aren't any questions, I'm going to go ahead and put you in your group. If you're with your group and you don't have any questions, then you can go ahead and get started by clicking on that research tab. So you two, radio waves. I'll hold on to you. Microwaves. You two, infrared. Visible lights. Ultraviolet right here. If you guys want to get together and you're working on X-rays. Yeah, why don't we do that? X-rays, ultraviolet. You guys are going to be working on gamma rays. You're going to work on gamma rays with them. And you two have an option. You can either work with a group of your choice, or I can put you on a different project. You're going to be drawing out the entire spectrum so that we can place information. So it'll be like on a roll of tape.
Can we work with another group?
Yeah. Yep. So you can choose what group you want to be with.
Where are we putting this information?
Oh, thank you. I'm going to have you write down your information first, so I don't want you to open PowerPoint yet, but I want you to just take a piece of paper. What I want you to do is, on that piece of paper, create sort of your 4 slides, so maybe put 2 slides on the front of the paper, 2 slides on the back of the paper, and just start writing where you're going to put your information if you were presenting a PowerPoint. After you get done with this and you show it to me and you get it checked off, then you can go ahead and start putting it on a PowerPoint. If we don't have access to the computers tomorrow, I'll probably just have you make these nicer, and then we can post them up around the room as well. You won't have time to finish it all today, but I want you to get a good start. I want to see that you are working well with your partner in the ways that the rubric describes. And then we'll come and we'll finish this tomorrow.
Slide definition, 3rd slide drawing, 4th slide we got a cat.
Aha, right. Why don't you take a look again at your rubric and see what isn't met in the presentation. And if you've got questions after you have the rubric up, ask me a specific question about it.
Nice. Uses for space discovery. Did you say satellites?
How much should I just? Yeah, okay.